Donald Trump has continued to assert without evidence that the United States election was undermined by voter fraud. And social media users have falsely claimed that citizens across the United States cast more than one vote by registering under the identities of deceased people. This is said to have happened in key swing states, the likes of Pennsylvania and Michigan. The claims have continued to spread on social media. You have Republican representatives like Matt Gaetz pushing this out and pointing the finger at the Democrats, blaming them without evidence that they are trying to steal the election. And these claims continue to be reiterated and pushed by Trump's own campaign. Now, here in theCUBE, we have seen a lot of experts who have told us that these rumours about dead people are not uncommon. In fact, they appear at every election. And indeed, you've seen state officials from those key states like Pennsylvania and Michigan who have repeatedly said in statements this week that there is no evidence of any voter fraud involving dead people. In fact, they have described these claims as wrong and inaccurate. For example, we spoke to Tammy Patrick. Now, she is a former election official in the state of Arizona, but she also advises for the Democracy Fund. That's an organisation that oversees voting in the United States. She told me that in some examples it can be where people have given their vote early, for example by mail. They have then died in the period between voting and election day, but they are still registered as a deceased voter. This can often confuse the public and feed this narrative of dead people voting. But Tammy Patrick also showed me her analysis, which shows that in some people, when they're registering on election voter rosters such as this one, signatures which might overlap into different cells can often trick the system into thinking that more than one person has voted when it is just one signature. This is what Tammy Patrick told me.
In a signature roster where a voter signs in, their signature overlaps into other voters' signatures. And so it triggers the system to believe that all three or two of those voters have voted when in fact it was just one very flamboyant voter with a large signature. And when we look into these allegations of voter fraud, those are the sorts of answers that we find out, not that it was in fact fraud.
Now, there are also allegations about voters legitimately registered but have unusually old birth dates. But a number of experts have said this can be explained with administrative errors or even voter confidentiality issues. And for more on this, I spoke to Jason Roberts, who's a professor of political science.
Someone could have a date of birth of 1981, so they're 39 years old, perfectly reasonable age to vote. Some clerk entering the data enters their date of birth as 1918. Suddenly they look like a 102-year-old voter. I mean, there is human error in elections, absolutely no doubt. And there are small examples here and there of people who do try to vote illegally. But there is no evidence whatsoever of any sort of voter fraud on any sort of a scale that would ever affect the outcome of an election.
So these misleading claims continue to spread, but a number of experts telling us here in theCUBE that there is no evidence of widespread voter fraud involving deceased voters, and certainly not on a level that could have had any effect on the final result of this United States election.